What's up, baseball fans? Welcome to the channel. So, if the players and the owners can just get along, it's very possible that we could have a season this year. So, if we do have a season, I wanted to go over my predictions for the proposed plan of an 82-game season and a 14-team playoff. Let's see what that would look like. So in case you didn't know, there would be an 82-game season and there would be a 14-team playoff where the number one seed in each league would get a bye to the division round, and the 2 and 3 seeds, or the division winners, would get to pick their wild card opponents. So the number 2 seed would get to pick first, the number 3 seed would get to pick after that, and then the 2 teams remaining in each league would play each other in the wild card round. So after the wild card round is done, the lowest seed remaining would play the number 1 seed, and then the other 2 teams would play in the other series. So let's waste no more time, let's get into it. So this is how the standings looked in 2019 after 82 games. The Yankees were leading the East, the Twins were leading the Central, the Astros were leading the West, the Braves in the NL East, the Cubs in the NL Central, and the Dodgers in the NL West. It would have been interesting if the standings finished this way. The Yankees still would have won the East, the Twins still would have been in the Central, the West still would have been the Astros. However, if you take a look here, the Athletics were in third at this time, so that wild card game would have been between the Rays and the Rangers instead of the Rays and the Athletics. If you take a look at the National League, the Nationals at this point were in third place. They weren't even in the playoffs at this point. So if the season ended at this point last year, the Nationals wouldn't have even won the World Series. So that's pretty interesting in itself. In the NL Central, last year the Cardinals won the Central. The Cubs, they would have been the NL Central champions. It would have played out a lot differently if it had ended after 82 games. So let's take a look at how I think 2020 would end after 82 games. So let's go over each division really quick. So in the AL East, I have the Yankees finishing first, Rays finishing 13 games behind them, the Red Sox in third, Blue Jays in fourth, and the Orioles in last. I think the Yankees are just clear-cut the best team in that division. Very good offense, very good pitching staff now with Garrett Cole, a great bullpen. The Yankees, I think, are the clear-cut winners here in the AL East. I think the Rays are still going to be good. They're going to be right there in the wild card in wild card contention. I think the Red Sox are going to drop off a little bit without Mookie Betts. Last year around this time, I think after 82 games, it was the Red Sox were at 44 wins. So they're going to be without Mookie Betts now. They're going to be without Sale. I still think the Red Sox have some pieces to keep them right around this mark of right around 500. So that's how I see the East playing out. In the Central, I have the Twins winning that division. I think the Twins, kind of like the Yankees in the East, I think the Twins are the class of that Central division. I see the White Sox improving this year. They had a very good offseason. Added some good pitching. Luis Robert is on the rise. Superstar in the making there. I think the Indians drop off a little bit. Trading away Trevor Bauer. Who knows what's going on with Clevinger? I mean, they've had some more time now, obviously, in the offseason, so I'm sure he's doing fine at this point. But the Indians did lose some key pieces in the offseason. Royals, Tigers finishing their last. In the West, I think the Athletics right now, I think they are a better team than the Houston Astros. I like the Athletics this year. They got off to a slow start last year, and even 2018, they got off to a bit of a slow start. But the Athletics, I think this year, when they see that there is only an 82-game season, I think the Athletics, they're going to be motivated. They're going to jump right out of the gate. I think they'll game plan fine. I think they'll be able to get off to a good start this year. Astros, I still think the Astros are going to be good. They're losing Garrett Cole, but they're going to have Justin Verlander fine, I would presume. He was having a bit of an injury to his lat in spring training. They've had an extended offseason now. So I think Verlander is probably going to be fine. They got Lance McCullers Jr. coming back from Tommy John. That's not going to replace the production of a Garrett Cole, but Lance McCullers Jr. is still a very effective arm if healthy. The Angels, I think, are going to be really good. The Angels had a very good offseason. Where the Angels do lack is the pitching. They got Dylan Bundy. They got Julio Teheran. Those are 2 guys that can just eat some innings. I think that's what the Angels need. I still think they're a pitcher away or a pitcher or 2 away. Getting a Garrett Cole really would have improved their chances of possibly even winning that division. But right now I have the Angels sitting there. Look out for the Rangers. They got Corey Kluber. When Corey Kluber's healthy, he's one of the better pitchers in this league. To go with Mike Minor and Lance Lynn Jr., that's a pretty solid top 3 in the rotation there. The Rangers, their problem is just finding consistency in the offense, but I think the Rangers, I think they're going to be pretty decent. I think they'll be in the conversation for the wild card. Moving on to the National League, in the NL East, I think the Braves, they are the most talented team in that division. I like the Braves. They just signed Cole Hamels. That he'll be, and that's another one. An extended offseason. Cole Hamels was dealing with some shoulder stuff in spring training. But I think, with all this time off, I think Cole Hamels is going to be pretty good. Braves, a good pitching staff, good offense. Ronald Acuna Jr. right there. I just really like that Braves team. The Mets, I think, are going to be very interesting this year. They had a pretty decent offseason. Dellin Betances, when healthy, is dominant out of that bullpen. If he's healthy, he will really help that bullpen, a bullpen that struggled last year. Edwin Diaz really struggled. Familia really struggled. I think those guys have a bounce-back season. I like that Mets bullpen. I think Betances, a healthy Betances, can really provide some stability for that bullpen. And I think you're going to see that Mets bullpen be one of the better bullpens in the National League. I like the offense, Pete Alonso, Conforto, and then the, pitching. They did lose Syndergaard, but Jacob deGrom is Jacob deGrom. They got Marcus Stroman now for a full year. Rick Porcello is going to be an interesting one. In this proposed plan of a season, there would be a universal DH, so Rick Porcello would not be getting away from a DH. But I think just going to a new team, it's a fresh start, change of scenery. I think Rick Porcello will actually be pretty decent for the Mets. The guy eats innings, even when he had an ERA above a 5 last year for the Red Sox. Trust me, I saw Rick Porcello last year every single game he pitched. He was pretty bad, but the guy ate innings, and I think that's what the Mets need, especially losing a Noah Syndergaard. So if he can just improve just a little bit, I think he'll benefit for the Mets a lot. I think the Nationals, the Nationals, they will take a bit of a step back. I think that offense, losing Anthony Rendon, Juan Soto isn't going to have that protection. They're going to have to find other pieces to keep that lineup going. I think they're not going to be able to replace that production, obviously, of Anthony Rendon. He had a wins above replacement. I know it was at least above a 6. I can't remember fully if it was above a 7, but Anthony Rendon, one of the most productive players last year. I think the Nationals, they take a slight step back, but they still got Strasburg. They still got Scherzer. It's a good pitching staff. They still got Corbin. But I just think the Mets, I don't know what it is. Something in my gut is just telling me the Mets are going to be pretty decent. I think they finished just a game ahead of the Nationals. And the Nationals, they had a slow start last year. So without Anthony Rendon, who knows how that Nationals team starts out. So as of right now, I don't think the Nationals are going to be a bad team. I think the Nationals will be a good team. I just think, just in my head right now, I like the Mets just a game ahead of the Nationals. I think the Phillies are going to be right there. Look out for the Phillies. Good offense. Signing Zach Wheeler in the offseason. I think the Phillies are going to be pretty decent. I think the Phillies are another pitcher or two away from being a really good team. The bullpen is still a little questionable. I like the Phillies here, and the Marlins finishing last. In the Central, I like the Reds this year. The Reds, they added Moustakas and Castellanos, 2 guys that can just hit. I think that'll be good for a lineup that struggled last year. Good pitching staff. Sonny Gray right there. They added a Trevor Bauer. That's only going to help. Luis Castillo, he is just going to be nasty this year. I really like the Reds. Just overall, I think they have a very decent team. It's funny. In my predictions video for the NL Central a few months ago, I had the Cubs finishing 3rd, but when I just really have the Cubs just in my mind a lot, I just like that team. They still have a lot of good talent on that team, a great lineup. Just top to bottom, that lineup is very solid. They just had trouble finding consistency last year. Chris Bryant, he's going to be Chris Bryant. You got Javier Baez right there. Good grief. There's just a lot of good pieces in that Cubs lineup. The bullpen, they are losing Kinsler out of that bullpen. They are losing a Pedro Strop. They are losing a Steve Cishek. But they had a couple younger guys in that bullpen last year towards the end of the season. I think I I don't think the Cubs bullpen's going to be bad. They're going to have some other guys step up. So we'll see how that goes for the Cubs. But I just think they have David Ross as their manager now. He won a World Series with them. He won a World Series and then retired. Hit a home run in Game 7. So David Ross as the manager, I think he's just going to try out some other things. I think he'll find a way to kickstart that Cubs offense a little bit. I like the Cubs in second here. Cardinals, I think the Cardinals, they lost Marcell Ozuna. That offense struggled a bit last year, and losing a Marcell Ozuna, that's not going to help at all. So, the Cardinals, they have some good pitching. They have some good pieces in the bullpen. It'll be interesting to see what Carlos Martinez does this year. Andrew Miller, I think he's due for a bounce-back year. But right now, I just think there's a lot of question marks with the Cardinals. But who knows with the Cardinals? They always seem to be right there at the end of the season. I think the Brewers take a step back. They lost some pieces. They lost Moustakas. They lost Eric Thames. But I think the Brewers, they take a slight step back. I don't think it'll be a terrible team, but I think they take a bit of a step back. Pirates finishing last there, trading away Starling Marte. The Pirates are already on the downfall, but they traded away a couple of pieces. I think the Pirates finish there. NL West, Dodgers clearly gonna win the West. That Dodgers team, yes, I know it's on paper right now, but that Dodgers team is just so good. Adding a Mookie Betts, adding a David Price to an already decent rotation with Kershaw and Walker Buehler. It's going to be a very good starting rotation for the Dodgers. Great pieces in that bullpen. You already had a pretty decent bullpen, and you added a Brusdar Graterol who throws 100, who can throw a sinker at 100 miles an hour. Are you kidding me? There's a lot of good pieces on that Dodgers team. Overall, I think the Dodgers will be the second best team in the major leagues next year. Look out for the Diamondbacks. I really like the Diamondbacks. A lot of good pieces on that team. Ketel Marte, one of the better players in this league. Madison Bumgarner at the top of that rotation now to go along with a Robbie Ray, traded for Zach Gallen. Great young pitcher, traded from the Marlins last year to the Diamondbacks. I really like that Diamondbacks team. I think they're very underrated heading into this season. I like the Diamondbacks there. They will easily be one of the wild card teams. Padres, I think they take a step forward, but I don't think they're going to be fully there yet. I still think they're a pitcher away or a pitcher or two away from being a serious team. But they're getting there. Another year or two, I think the Padres are going to be right there. A lot of good young pieces on that team. Rockies, who knows with the Rockies? The Rockies are such a wild card team. You don't know. One of the best lineups in the game, but the pitching is just so iffy. Who knows with Arenado? What's going on? He has all that beef with the front office. Who knows how Arenado's going to do? Arenado will do fine, but who knows how the chemistry and whatnot's going to work? It's gonna be interesting for the Rockies. I think the Rockies could either be just really bad or they could end up being pretty good. So let's see how that goes. Giants, I think they'll finish last. They traded away, or they lost a couple of pieces. Lost Madison Bumgarner, so we'll have to see how that goes. But this is how I see the standings finishing out in 2020 after 82 games. So moving on to the wild card round, don't forget that the teams get to pick who they want to play. So I think in this scenario, I think the Twins would pick the Angels. The Angels are the least experienced. They have a great offense, but really their best pitcher is Ohtani. Who knows how Ohtani is going to be at that point? If he's going to be healthy, and even if he is healthy, he has the least experience. I think the Twins would want to go up against an Angels team. Good offense, but questionable pitching, questionable bullpen. I think the Twins would take on the Angels. I think the Athletics, with they have the next pick. I think they would pick the White Sox. I think the Athletics, they would want to challenge that team. It's a good White Sox team, but I think the Athletics would feel like they can match up with that White Sox team. So we would have Athletics and the White Sox, and the two teams left over would be the Astros and the Rays. There'd be a great one-game playoff, great talent there. Rematch of the division series last year. I think the Astros would feel okay heading into that matchup. I think the Braves, I think they would take their chances against a good Diamondbacks team. Yes, they have Madison Bumgarner, but I think the Braves feel like the Diamondbacks in this scenario, I would think that they would think the Diamondbacks have the least experience out of all these teams. You would have a pick between the Cubs, the Mets, the Nationals, and the Diamondbacks. I don't know if I'd want to pick a good Cubs team that just won a World Series a few years ago. They got a lot of experienced players, a good manager in David Ross. Great pitching on the Mets, great pitching on the Nationals. I don't know if the Braves would want to pick those teams. out of all these teams, I would want to take my chances on a Diamondbacks team that has the least experience. I think the Braves would pick the Diamondbacks. I think the Reds, they would have the next pick. I think the Reds would pick the Cubs. I think the Reds would feel like, hey, you know what? We have the most familiarity with this team. We know this team. We feel like we can play this team. We're going to pick the Cubs here. I think it would be Reds, Cubs right there. And then the two teams left over. What a matchup that would be. Mets, Nationals. Most likely you would see a Jacob deGrom versus a Max Scherzer if they're both healthy. I think that would be an awesome one-game playoff. So my predictions here, I would take the Twins over the Angels. I think the Twins are just more talented than the Angels. The Angels aren't there yet. Athletics, I think they would be able to handle the White Sox here. I think the Athletics would finally make it past the wild card round. And if I'm going to pick between the Astros and the Rays, I mean, that's a tough choice. If you're going to have, like, let's say a Verlander against like a Blake Snell, I mean, I can't go against a Verlander. Verlander is just money. I would pick the Astros here. Braves, Diamondbacks, I would pick the Braves. I like the Braves, just great talent overall. Good mix of veterans, good mix of young talent. Ronald Acuna Jr. right there. I think Ronald Acuna, he really he wants to prove that he's one of the best players in this league. I think that Braves team is going to be really good. Reds, Cubs. If I were to put money, I'm going to pick the Cubs. I like the Cubs. They had a tough year last year, but there's a lot of good pieces on that Cubs team. They have a good guy as a manager who I think is going to be able to figure out some ways for that Cubs lineup to get going, to help out that pitching staff a little bit. I would pick the Cubs here over, hey, an inexperienced Reds team. I'm going to go with the experience. I would pick the Cubs here. And then Mets, Nationals. I think the Mets would have a good run here, but I think just the Nationals, defending World Series champions, you can go with a Max Scherzer or a Steven Strasburg or a Patrick Corbin. I mean, there's a lot of good pieces on the Nationals team. Yeah, offensively, they're not going to be as good, obviously, without Anthony Rendon, but I think the Nationals would be able to handle the Mets. I would pick the Nationals here. All right, so on to the division round. The Astros would be the lowest seed remaining after the wild card round, so they would play the Yankees in the first round, a rematch of the championship series last year, and you would have the Twins versus the Athletics. Cubs would be the lowest seed remaining in the National League, so they would face the Dodgers, and then you would have a Braves and Nationals series on the other side. So great matchups here, just a ton of stories all over the place here. Yankees, Astros rematch. Yankees want revenge for all the buzzers. They want all the revenge in a 5-game series. I mean, they would. I would imagine the Astros would have Verlander pitching that wild card game, so they're down Verlander. They'd probably have Lance McCullers Jr. if he's healthy go game 1. I think the Yankees would just be too much. Verlander would probably pitch game 2, game 3. But by that point, I think the Yankees would just be too much, and the Yankees would advance. So another interesting series on the other side in the American League, Twins, Athletics. The Twins have not been able to make it past the division round in so long. The Athletics, they just overcame their demons by getting out of the wild card round. Two teams with a lot to prove. They want to go far. They want to win a World Series. The Twins and Athletics, they have had such good teams in the past that just couldn't make it past the division round or past the wild card round. So this is a very intriguing matchup here. In this scenario, I think the Twins would just be too much for the Athletics. I think the Twins would overcome their division series demons, and I think they would be able to handle this Athletics team. Twins with a great offense, very decent pitching staff. They have a lot of depth in the pitching, and a very good bullpen. I like the Twins in a 5-game series. Moving on to the National League, I think the Dodgers and Cubs would be a pretty good series, but I mean, the Dodgers overall, too much talent for the Cubs. The Dodgers would just overwhelm that Cubs pitching staff with their offense. Their pitching, I think, would be able to hold down that Cubs offense. The Dodgers have a better bullpen than the Cubs. I think the Dodgers would move on. And this would be a very intriguing matchup here in the other side of the National League, Braves and Nationals. And man, you know, if there is a team that could defend their World Series championship, it's this year. It's the Nationals. The Nationals have had extended rest. They've had the most rest after a World Series, after winning a World Series more than any other team ever. I mean, this would be the year. I just think in a 5-game series, when you put the Nationals, when you got Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin in a 5-game series. I got to go Nationals here. As good as that Braves team is, I just really like the Nationals in a 5-game series. It's hard to pick against that much pitching. Yeah, I think the Braves, that offense would be a slightly better, but I just like the pitching on the Nationals side. They've had more rest now after winning a World Series. I think the Nationals would be able to beat a good Braves team, and I think that would go 5 games. I would pick the Nationals here. So moving on to the League Championship Series, we got interesting matchups on both sides. Yankees-Twins. Now, the Twins have not been able to beat the Yankees. I think they've beaten the Yankees one time in the playoffs. I think that's it. The Twins, this is their best chance to take down the Yankees. The Twins have a decent team, a good offense. Max Kepler, Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz in that lineup. If there's any team that can take on the Yankees this year in the American League, it's the Twins. However, I got to pick the Yankees here. I have to pick the Yankees. They have a better pitching staff overall. They got a Garrett Cole now, frontline guy, one of the best in the game. When you got a Garrett Cole, Masahiro Tanaka at the 2 spot, just really good pitching in the bullpen. I mean, good grief. Aroldis Chapman, Zach Britton. Come on. It's just like, oh, my goodness. It's just such a good Yankees team. I would pick the Yankees. I think the Twins would give them a good run. I think the Twins could make it at least 6 games, but I think the Yankees would just overwhelm this Twins team in the end. So I am going to go with the Yankees moving on to the World Series. And you have another interesting matchup here in the League Championship Series. Dodgers-Nationals rematch of the Division Series last year. The Dodgers last year, I had the Dodgers winning the World Series last year. I liked that Dodgers team last year. And then they added a Mookie Betts, a David Price, a Brusdar Graterol. They re-signed Alex Wood. They got him back this past offseason. That's depth for the rotation. Goodness, that is such a good Dodgers team. And I think they would have something. They would want to prove something against that Nationals team. I think a lot of people were picking the Dodgers last year. And then the Nationals kind of just had a hot run at the end of the regular season, and they just took out the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers here would win this series. I just like the Dodgers. I think that could be a classic National League Championship Series. That could be one of the best of all time. Great teams, but I think just the Dodgers would have a better offense. They would have just enough pitching to get by. I think that would be a great series, but in the end I would have the Yankees and the Dodgers moving on to the World Series. So the World Series now, Yankees, Dodgers. I don't care what kind of season you have. It could be 82 games, it could be 100 games, 162 games, it could be 500 games. I think these teams are the 2 best teams in baseball. Yankees, Dodgers. I think a lot of people are going to pick this, but why wouldn't you? They have the most talent. They have the most battle-ready players. There's guys on both sides that have won World Series. They have a good mix of young guys, veterans, good bullpens, good offenses, good pitching staffs. So this could be easily one of the toughest matchups to ever pick. In the end, though, I would go with the Dodgers. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, there's that Red Sox bias. There it is. We knew it was coming. It's not bias. I just think that Dodgers team, even with the Yankees with Garrett Cole, that's a really good rotation. I just think the Dodgers have a little more. I think Walker Buehler, Kershaw, David Price, who just won a World Series recently. I think David Price, as ridiculous as it may sound, could be like a sort of a mentor for Clayton Kershaw to get through his postseason demons a bit. I think the Dodgers have a bullpen that can match up with the Yankees bullpen, and the Dodgers have an offense that can match up with the Yankees offense. I think the Dodgers just have like a tiny bit more, and I think with the Yankees, with their history of injuries, I know they've had more time now to rest. They've had more time now to get their players healthy, but the Yankees just have a history of not being able to keep their guys on the field. They had a record amount of injuries last year, or a record amount of guys on the disabled list last year. I would bet my money on the Dodgers here. The Dodgers, they have been to 2 World Series in the last 3 years. The Dodgers are ready to win a World Series. It's been a long time since they've won a World Series. The Dodgers, would be ready to go here. This could be one of the best World Series of all time, of all time. This could go 7 games. This could be amazing. Could you imagine a Game 7 with a Garrett Cole and a Clayton Kershaw, or a Masahiro Tanaka and a Walker Buehler? Or, I mean, there's so many different scenarios that you could go. But I think the Dodgers, they're just going to have a little more here, and I would pick the Dodgers to win the World Series this year. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. How do you think these divisions would shape up? Who do you think would be the wild card teams? How do you think it would shape up? Who do you think would win the World Series here? Just tell me everything you think down below. Again, those are just my opinions. So there's a lot of different ways that this season could shape up. There could definitely be some surprise teams here. There's a lot of different ways this season could go. Tell me down below in the comments your thoughts. Thanks for watching today. Have a great day.